Hey guys, Terry here. Today I want to show you how to use your Brother ScanNCut to cut out a stamped image, and then instead of just cutting the outside of it, we can select some lines and shapes inside the stamp to decide to cut those out too. Okay, so for this example, I am going to stamp from this stamp set called Tasty Trucks, and it's from ScanNCut. I think it's a stamp set from last year. And I'm using just some black ink. I want to make sure I've got lots of ink on it. I want a nice dark crisp image. Okay. So now we're going to open up our machine and load the mat. And then I'm going to tell it to scan. And I'm going to do direct cut. And then I'm going to tell it to scan it and send it right to the canvas. So I'm going to hit start. And it's transferring it. This machine is wireless, so it's on my home network, and it says that it has finished transferring. So it's got the steps here, but I'm basically going to take you over to the software and show you how to use it. So hold on, I'm going to move the camera over. Okay, so now we're over at my computer. So I've downloaded the Brother Canvas Workspace software. If you go to the Brother website and create an account, you install this onto your computer. And it has, this looks like just the mat that we had sent into the machine. And I'm going to click on SVG right here. Notice when I hover over it, it says import. Oops, hold on. Sorry, I was telling you wrong. Instead of clicking on that SVG, we click on File and Import from your cutting machine. And we didn't save it. Remember, there was the choice of direct cut or the scan to cut data. So we did direct cut. So all we did was directly scan the image. So I'm clicking on File, Import from your cutting machine, and a scanned image, because all we did was lay the mat in and hit scan, and then we sent it over to the software. So it's getting it from that image that we just scanned in. So here's our image. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, we can see what we scanned on the mat. I'm going to click on this image tracing option. And when I do that, it says, do you want to bring in an image from the computer or something scanned by your machine? And I'm going to pick an image scanned by your machine. So it defaulted to the tracing the outer edge only. And I can see here that it only picked up like the top canopy and the headlight and something on the bumper. So I want to adjust that. So what I'm going to do is tell it a few less colors, and notice as I'm doing that, it's picking up more shapes. Can you see up there? It is picking up more shapes. So it lets me go down to the number of colors of 2. So let's just do this as an example, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so playing a little bit more with the software, I see it's a couple of things. Up here at the top, there is a zoom. I can zoom in on my shape here so that I can see what I've got on my mat. I'll zoom it real big so you guys can see it. And then I notice that over here, there's a little property box over here, and I see there's a paintbrush that says Properties, and then there's editing the size of it, and then there's layers. So I noticed when I was on the layers, if I click on these things, it's got all the different shapes, and then they're grouped, and I can tell it to hide. And I can delete it. So if I take that off, well, let's not take that one off yet. Let's go through all the different shapes here. That one, and I notice that they're grouped too. So for example, I don't want to cut that. I don't want to cut that headlight out. So I'm just going to hit my delete key. I don't want to cut that out. I don't want to cut that out. So I'm basically just cycling through all the shapes that I don't want to cut. I do want to cut those windows out. And then I'm going to hit ungroup. Okay. I think that this outer blue one is just the piece of paper, so I'm going to delete that one. And this shape, wanted to see if I could move it. And this shape, and this shape. Okay, so what I'm noticing with this is I really don't like that it didn't have all the shapes. So I'm going to start over again. I'm going to do File New. Oops. I'm going to import it from the machine, the scanned image, and then this time I'm going to scan it again. But remember we started with the outer edge. This time I'm going to do it by area. Trace areas by color. And notice again, it's just got the in here so you can see it. So I'm doing the trace area by color, and it's set to 5 number of colors. Remember we just did a black and white image? So I'm dialing the numbers down and it's getting more shapes. So I like that. So it seemed best to be, for this stamped image, it was best to do it by color and not just the outer edge. It wasn't getting all the lines with outer edge. So we're doing it by that, and then I dialed down the number of colors. So then I hit OK. And notice over here on the properties box, if I hit layers, I'm now seeing all the different shapes. So as I cycle through this, and again, zoom in so you can see what you're doing. Zoom in here so you can see it. So I'm going to cycle through these and delete the shapes that I don't want to cut. You can see it's going through all the things, and I'm just trying to get it down to a shape, just the shapes that where I want to cut that edge. So see that one? I do want to cut that. So that one's a good one. This one's a good one. That one I don't want. That one I don't want. If I did want these, if I did want to cut the tires out, then those would be the shapes I would be keeping. And it kind of shows you. So there's that front window, there's that window, and then I didn't keep this back window. I don't know if there's a way to undo them. There's probably a way to undo, but let me show you with these two shapes. Okay, so I basically have my two shapes. I have that window and the front window, and I want to send this back over to my ScanNCut. So I basically click on File and say Transfer it back. The settings of the lock unlock will be invalid. Okay, let's It's giving me a warning message. So now it says my registered machine is ready to download my transferred file. So let's go back over to the machine. Okay, back over to our machine. We were on this screen, so we're just going to get out of here. So we're retrieving it. This was step 3 to retrieve it. And if I zoom in, you can see that it's got the 2 windows as boulder lines there. Okay, so I'm going to tell it what the distance is that I want it to cut out, and I want it to cut exactly on those lines. I could tell it to cut inside it or right on it. Hit OK, and then tell it to cut. Now, it's important that I haven't unloaded my mat because it knows exactly where that shape is on this for image when we scanned it. So I'm going to hit cut and tell it to start. Okay. So basically cut out those 2 windows like we said. Now, we haven't cut out the outside. So to do that, I'm going to go back to home. It's going to say delete all the patterns. Okay. I'm going to tell it to scan, direct cut. It's going to scan the image again. Now if we had kept the outside of the stamped image, we wouldn't have to do this. We would have kept the outside line and then those 2 windows. But the reason I like to do it separate is now, remember I didn't change whether to cut it smaller or bigger than those shapes. What I want to do now is tell it to cut a little bit outside the line. So just the outside of the truck. And I'm hitting OK, telling it to cut, and then hitting start. So normally if I was just going to cut the outside, sorry, started to say, normally when I just cut the outside, I tell it a little bit wider distance. So for the windows we did it right on the line, and on the outside I did it as a little bit outside. So I did see that when it scanned it got that tire, but notice that it cut the 2 windows out. So just as a reminder, what we did to do that, go back home here, we did scan, we did direct cut, and we told it to go to the software. And then over on the computer we received it, decided what lines to keep, and then we sent it back over to the machine. So be sure to play with the Canvas software. I think I've still got to learn some of the menu options on it, but it seemed just at first trial it was very easy to send it from the machine, send it from the machine, and then update it on the computer. And you can see there's little things we need to learn, but that was pretty quick for a first try. Thanks, guys.